For more resources, visit rymonline.org.
The Local Youth Worker is a daily podcast that's centered on 5 questions each week. Ranging from the practical to the professional, we're looking for answers to the questions you're asking. Whether you're in full-time, part-time, or even volunteer youth ministry, this podcast is for you.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We're talking to Michael Hall. We've talked about what he's done well in ministry, some of the mistakes that he's made. And then today, Michael is an encouraging truth that gives you perspective and encouragement in ministry. I know for sure I've heard from other youth workers that this can be just a very encouraging segment because you hear some truth from others, and it's good to hear that, to be reminded, even if it's a truth we've heard countless times. So, Michael, what's a truth or a few truths that you reflect on to give you encouragement in ministry?
Well, there are a number, and because Lord knows I've needed a number of encouraging truths over the years as I've stumbled along, for sure. So I'll just kind of offer in no particular order, just kind of a cloud of comments and things that have been super helpful for me in ministry. The first one is just kind of rooted into our theology, whether you're listening to this and you're, espoused to Reformed understanding the Bible or not. But the sovereignty of God is huge in ministry for anyone in ministry, especially in youth ministry, when a lot of what we do with kids who are, they're just foolish and young and immature, and they do things over and over and over that you just think sooner or later, why am I doing what I'm doing? Nothing's working, nothing's clicking, and
Exactly.
we have to literally, if we don't believe in the sovereignty of God, then we will get really, really stressed and anxious about our efforts in ministry. So within that idea, that God is the one at work, that He is sovereign over every heart. He knows these kids, and I tell kids, how do I know if God's at work in my life? I was like, because you know me. I'm a pastor. I'm a guy who loves Jesus, and I love students, and it's not by accident that we know each other. That's at least one. You may be very disappointed with that as a picture of God's sovereignty, but the fact that we're hanging out and talking about your prayer life means that God's at work and He wants you to know how much He loves you. So all this is God's sovereignty is a big piece of that. And all that entails with that, that my ministry success doesn't depend on my knowledge, my savvy, my pizzazz. None of that stuff is what matters most. Now, again, that doesn't mean we sit on the couch and do nothing. We have to work in ministry and serve and lead. But God's sovereignty is huge. Also remembering that ministry isn't just about me and Jesus. It's about a community. Look and see, whether your church or youth ministry is large or small, it's never, God never intended for the church to be, an individual in a room with his Bible. There is a place for private worship, but it is absolutely the goal of life in community is huge, and that's an encouragement because it not only means that we're never alone as God's people, but ministry never happens in a vacuum. It always happens in the context of a broader community, whether the kids you're working with go to church or with their family or not. Your influence in the community is never just about you by yourself. And as you're building a ministry team, it's like, I need my ministry team of volunteers to be a diverse group of people. I need extroverts and introverts. I need athletes, and I need, chess marathon team people, whatever it may be. I love chess, but I always lose, even to elementary school kids. So I'm a little bitter there. It's not that I have anything wrong with chess, but so the diversity.
You can play me, and I'll encourage you greatly with my lack of chess skills.
So that the diversity of God's body, in terms of church size, church location, even within your own church, that community piece has always been a real encouragement to me to know that it's not all on me. I remember even just going into ministry, I was hesitant to do it. I said, I'm not going into ministry because if people really knew my story, they wouldn't listen to a thing I had to say. Just I'm such a broken story or whatever. And people will remind me, hey, let me tell you about a guy named Paul who wrote half the New Testament.
Yeah, that's right.
The guy, and this idea of that. So the third kind of thing is just that there's lots of ways to say it, but God always uses broken people to do beautiful things. There is no, other than the person of Jesus, in whom we all get our power, right? The power that we have in us is the same power used to raise Christ from the dead. And in him, we have every spiritual blessing in heaven. And our inheritance will never perish, spoil, or fade. And we have so much in him, he who was perfect. But none of us are. We are all going to stumble into every single ministry encounter, no matter how theologically robust we are, or how fun or athletic we are, or how hilarious we are, or how whatever it is. We all come in with weakness, and God only always ever uses weak people to grow people, and that's an encouragement to me that I can wake up knowing what a bumbling fool I am, and know that I can still be used by God. That's a huge thing for me. It's been a great encouragement to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's something just to interject a little bit. I mean, that's to me one of the most encouraging things about reading Scripture is to see. I mean, I'm in the Gospels right now. What broken people the disciples were, and these were the 12 people that Jesus chose, and one betrayed him, and you've got Peter sticking his foot in his mouth left and right. But to me, that is so encouraging. That those are the types of people God loves to use. So yeah, just echoing what you said.
That's right. And I'd say that another category of encouragement for me in ministry has been, and this will be maybe a tangential self-serving plug for RYM's youth leader training, but early on in ministry, I was introduced to some guys who were not in my hometown, but they were in my general region, who invited me into fellowship kind of once a year, and then via email and phone call, usually more often than that back in the day. But like guys and gals who were in ministry alongside me, though apart, this kind of camaraderie, this fraternity of youth leaders. And it was important for me to have a relationship with guys and girls who had kind of been in the game before me, to know them, to listen to them. And then although I didn't meet Walt Mueller in person until a few years ago, and for years, he and his ministry at CPYU were like such an encouragement to me in ministry, that they were these guys laboring on the front lines, bringing content to me to think about as I approach students. Guys like Chap Clark as well were huge for me, and Doug Fields and Duffy Robbins and these guys who were thinking really well about ministry and had been for a while to help me think about ministry. So having that community of ministry. When I was in St. Louis, we had this incredible group of youth leaders called SlyNet. Sounds kind of shady, but St. Louis Youth Network, whatever. But so it's such a bad name for like youth leaders with all the negative stereotypes or whatever. But we met together for once a month. It ended up being twice a month actually, so we could include more people. But literally, we didn't get there to train each other. We just went to listen to each other, pray with each other. On occasion, we bring somebody in to teach us or talk to us. But I mean, it was a lifeline for me. I look forward to that group. Knowing that it was I could go in there and be reminded of so many important truths. And then literally when I went to St. Louis, I got there in 2005. RYM started youth leader training in 2008. The first time I went was in 2009, actually. And it became for me for the next 10, 11 years, and still going now, even though I'm on staff with RYM, it became this kind of annual sabbatical that no youth leader ever gets, right? Last time a youth leader asked a church for a sabbatical, even if it was just 1 week, they don't get it. But to be able to get away, to find refreshment, to have great conversation with coworkers from all over the place, to think well about ministry and not just go in and kind of pull some tools to say, I'm going to go try this back home, but to be really grounded and encouraged in what matters most in terms of words, prayer, and thinking well about it. So that idea of ministry, not only knowing that it's not just up to me, but also deliberately connecting myself to other youth leaders, has always been and continues to be a huge encouragement to me, knowing that that when I isolate myself, that's when I'm more prone to see that, man, ministry is so hard, and why am I? And I'd go fix a car and come home, and life would be pretty simple. And while we still need a community there, of course, but like in ministry, that's been a literally almost on a weekly basis. I've been so thankful for the community of others in ministry, others in youth leadership, and how they benefited me along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, prior to my time, or prior to coming on staff with RYM, when I was at Pear Orchard Presbyterian Church, that week at YLT, I mean, that was just a shot in the arm for sure. I mean, it was a highlight. And like you said, having that community of people who are doing ministry in the local church context is vital, just to be around and interact with and pray together and encourage each other. It's huge. So yeah, it's definitely needed. All right. Well, thanks, Michael.